Have you ever thought back on your time as a woodworker and all the stuff that you've learned, some of it probably the hard way, and considered what, if you were given the chance, you'd share with your younger self? It's a fascinating exercise that was suggested to me by a viewer, and I've heard it in the past too. And I think we could learn a lot if we share our thoughts in the comments below. So please tell me what you would tell your younger self about this craft. In the meantime, I'm going to spend this video speaking directly to my younger self, say 25, 35 years ago. That was when I was between the ages of around 8 to 18. It was during those years that I really started making things with wood, and I had no idea what I didn't know, so you can listen if you like. Hey, younger Jim, how's it going? I know you think school sucks and grown-ups are lame. 8-year-old you is an embarrassment to me. You think Bullwinkle's a comedic genius. Frankly, 18-year-old you is kind of embarrassing. I mean, I still remember when you nearly peed yourself when your brother took that baseball square in the tenders. At 18, really? That's because you're an idiot. It's not your fault. Your brain's still growing to fill that big hollow dome of yours, but let's try to focus just for a couple minutes because we need to talk about your woodworking. Now, you've made a few projects now, and some of them aren't so bad. That bookshelf you built, that sucker is like a tank. I don't know how you're going to think you're going to get it up the stairs to your bedroom, but it is definitely not going to fall apart on the way up like that stool did, so that's progress. And it took a lot of patience to pull all those nails out of that old lumber that Grandpa gave you, and then re-straightening them with a hammer so you could use them to make something. I know you did that out of necessity, but really patience is also one of the fundamental skills every good woodworker needs. Never be in a rush. That's how accidents and crappy projects happen. You know how Grandpa says, sneak up on it? That is the best bit of advice he's ever going to give you. Don't try to get the perfect fit on a single cut. Slowly work your way to it. Woodworking isn't about cutting and assembling a bunch of parts. It's about properly fitting things together with patience and care. I know that's hard to grasp for the adolescent mind. Kids are always in a hurry, but learn to slow things down when you work. It'll make a world of difference. All right, time for some tough love. I know you've been talking to Grandma about getting some new tools on credit from our family's hardware store. You think I don't know about that miter saw you've had your eye on? They're my eyes too, you know. Let me fill you in on what's going to happen. You'll work all summer to pay for that thing, and you're going to use it to make a total of 2 cuts because you don't build picture frames or use fancy moldings yet. You see, that's what happens when you buy tools because you saw them in a magazine or a New Yankee Workshop, instead of because a project actually called for it. In the next few years, you're going to fall into that trap so many times. You'll have a bunch of tools you hardly ever use and no money for wood. A few years later, I'm going to sell those like new tools in a yard sale and use the money to buy a Pearl Jam album. So thanks for that. My point is, let the project dictate the tool purchases, not the other way around. And do you know what your tool purchase should be for your next project? Some safety gear. I know, you don't want to cover that handsome pimply face with a dust mask, and Grandpa says safety glasses are for sissies. But Dad literally sewed Grandpa's nostril back on his face, and believe it or not, he had 2 thumbs when he was born. So maybe he's not the safety expert you think he is. I'm not so worried about you. You're a perpetual embarrassment to me now. I'm worried about myself. I don't want to spend my twilight years with a seeping eye patch or endless ringing in my ears because you thought you were indestructible. I'll tell you, it's a shame they don't make isotunes back in your day. You're probably thinking Bluetooth means you have to cut back on the Purplesaurus Rex. But these will someday change your life because you'll be listening to music, which I know you like to do, or what one day will be known as a podcast in the shop, and you'll already have your headphones on when you go to turn on a tool, and so you're more likely to be protected. You won't even have to think about it. Oh, and by the way, someday when you have a YouTube channel, I know you don't know what that is yet, but people are going to give you crap about music being a distraction while you're using something like a table saw. Don't bother mentioning how open heart surgeons jam out to heavy metal all the time. Just tell them there's a pause button on the side. That's a few years off for you now. For now, get yourself a set of foam earplugs, some safety glasses, and a dust mask. And stop trying to be cool because you're not. Chicks don't dig scars that come from stupidity. I'm talking about that handsaw incident. I still have the scar. Frankly, I'm glad you won't have a table saw for another, 15 years or so? You're still dumb enough to think you don't need a blade guard or a push stick because only dumb people get hurt. I know you because I am you. And I used to think paying close attention to what I was doing was all it took to keep my booger pickers attached. You've already been hearing folks say things like respect the tool and know your limitations. You know who says that, really? People who have no idea what their limitations are and who don't respect their tools enough to know you shouldn't strip off the safety gear. There's no point in arguing with them or with you at your age. But someday, as you get deeper into this craft, you're going to start meeting more and more woodworkers with mangled meat hooks who used to think it could never happen to them. Some of them will be true masters in this craft with 30, 40 years of injury-free, perfect experience right up until the day they found themselves sitting in the emergency room with a baggie full of iced fingers. Because believe it or not, we are all humans, even you. And humans make mistakes, no matter how careful we think we're always going to be. That safety gear is there for when you eventually prove you are human too. Like that time you drove the Dodge Omni 80 miles an hour down I-75 in a blizzard with Paradise City blasting on the radio. When you stopped spinning into the medium, you were glad you had that seatbelt on, weren't you? My point is, it's one thing to think nothing will ever happen to you when you're young and stupid like you are now. But don't grow up to be that arrogant moron who still thinks his skills can completely overcome human fallibility when he's old enough to know better. Speaking of wisdom from experience, this one isn't strictly about woodworking, but it's something you need to hear. Set aside some of that $4.25 an hour you're about to make. In fact, try to set aside a dime out of every dollar. I know that seems like a fortune, but here I am in the 2020s, working my butt off trying to make up for the 90s and 2000s when you didn't save any of those dimes. And for what? So you could get that new tape deck for your Ford Escort? The car bra? Seriously? When you go into a Taco Bell and they greet you like you're Norm walking into Cheers, you know you're wasting too much money. Stop being an idiot and put some of that away so I can retire early and actually do some woodworking for fun without toting a camera around with me. I'm going to wrap this up because I know you can't pay attention to anything for more than 2 minutes. Besides, I want to give the audience a chance to leave their comments about what they would like to tell their younger woodworking selves below. But before I do, I want to leave you, the younger James Hamilton, 2 more thoughts. First, stop staining pine dark colors. It doesn't look like walnut, it looks like crap. And lastly, you know that money I said to save? Someday, when the internet becomes a thing, you're going to hear about a bookseller called Amazon. Invest it all. You'll thank me later. It's just a couple of cuts. Your ears will be fine, right? They will be if you have your IsoTunes Bluetooth earbuds in, because you'd already have your ANSI certified hearing protection on because you're listening to your favorite music and podcasts. And you're supporting a small family business at the same time. Please use the link below this video to learn more and to show them you support what we do as well.